Hi there. Hi, my beautiful cosmic sister, and
Good.
hi everybody. If I do something here, I have company. I have a little bit of a fly here,
Well,
a tiny one.
I just realized my computer was not plugged in, and it was saying your battery is going bye bye, and I go, oh,
How wonderful! Finally, right? So,
mhm.
again here, welcome everybody. And today we have Wednesday, June 18th. Oh, we are soon coming to 6 months of this year. So coming into summertime and all of that good stuff. And you are watching Cosmic Sis-Stars Show with host Corinne and Anne. Today we will talk about feeding the fear. Maybe that sounds a little bit negative somehow, right? But on the other note, we need to acknowledge what we're doing. And fear is one of the biggest things we are dealing with in this world, to be honest. And we're going to dive deep into that. And sorry, last show on Cosmic Guardians and Cosmic Sisters was last Wednesday, June 11th, and we did talk about the Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, Insight 3, the energy of life. Everything is energy, and we can tap into it. That's a great show as well. And we are from now on, this is the third week, if I'm counting correctly, that we are streaming live on YouTube.
Mhm.
And right after the show, we stream the replay on Cosmic Guardians on Facebook so everybody can watch. It's because of technical reasons and we had a lot of hiccups. So we do it this way and it's better. You can always go to youtube.com/at Angel Place on Earth/streams to find us where we are streaming live. And we do appreciate if you want to write a comment or ask a question or whatever. Just don't be shy, guys. Dive in. As long as we are live, right? If we are not live, we still answer questions because it's going to pop up for us so we can answer them.
Mhm.
And I'm going to post on Facebook where you can find today's show, a direct link. And yeah, I'm kind of stumbling on the words today, right? So you can find upcoming and past episodes at angelplaceonearth.com/upcoming-past. You can find all about me and Corinne, connect with us, phone numbers, email addresses, websites, everything at angelplaceonearth.com/cosmic guardians. You can see Corinne there as well, right? So you can connect with her. And we are so thrilled to be here with you. We I wanted to say something else. The series we are doing with the Celestine Prophecy is actually brilliant because there are 12 insights. When you and I started, you started way before me, but I started around the year 2000 to dive into that series of books. And at that point, I think there were 9 insights and a 10th
Yeah.
coming. And we are going to twice a month stream and talk about these insights so we can dive into them and understand them and how to apply them into our daily life because they are still so valid, very, very valid.
Very.
And for your information as well, and it's a little bit funny, but it's like walking your talk. Every time we do a topic, we are actually walking our own talk, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yes.
So next week is going to be again next week or the week after. I think next week is going to be again a new episode, Wednesday 25 of the Celestine Prophecy, Insight 4, right?
Mm.
And now I think it's actually time to dive into today's topic.
Wow. Whoa. Oh, feeding the fish. It's amazing how we take in little animals and we feed them, and we don't realize that they could possibly, turn out to be something that we really did not want to have in our energy field. But fear is both friend and foe. Uh, at our birth, we take our first breath. We have our first food, but we are also equipped with an inborn fear of falling and loud noises. Every creature on earth comes to the earth with a certain amount of fear put into their DNA so they can survive. When you see this shape, don't go around it. When you certain things that are given to us, so we will survive. However, as we grow older, we start adding the unseen fears, the emotional baggage, that these are the ones that if we become addicted to them, we start feeding them, and then our lives take a whole different change.
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting because so many things we no, let's rephrase that. Getting back to childhood, right? Because we are
Hmm.
taught so many things. We are taught what to be fearful of, what to accept, what is normal,
Hmm.
what is out of the question.
Yes. Yes.
And and also, common sense, but common sense is something that you could feel from within as well.
Hmm.
It is something that you feel this doesn't feel right to do. Therefore, that is not something I should do, right? But we don't need to hold on to it as fear. And no one is raising us with the intent to create vulnerable beings. Maybe there are, but that's maybe one
That's another
or two
show.
on this. Yeah, another show. But usually, our parents and our family, they want to raise good kids, and they come from their experiences,
Hmm.
right?
Well, so much of what we, as an infant and a young child, we don't have the ability to discern between, oh, this is just something that happens in our environment, and it doesn't really isn't going to really affect us. But we pick up the emotions, and emotions are very, very strong. And we watch the interaction between our parents and between our siblings, and also what happens when we ask for something or receive it, and so forth. And we pick up these impressions that we relate to something that is real, because our mind can't and still does not know the difference between hardcore real and what we imagined. Our bodies will respond the exact same way to a bear coming at us as, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this test. The body reacts the same way. It doesn't know the difference. And as small children, we watch our parents argue, and we think we had something to do with that. So we store that information. We ask for something and it's denied. So we store that information. Don't ask for that. You can have the purple dress, but you can't have the blue shoes. So we start taking in to kind of give ourselves an idea of how to navigate around our emotional environment. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the emotional fears that we bring really are the ones that stay with us forever and ever. I mean, as we grow up, we learn, don't touch something that looks hot because we're going to get burned. That's a stored memory, and but we don't keep going back to it. Oh, let's go try the hot thing and see if it burns. Oh, it burns. Let's go try the hot thing, and it burns. But with emotional fears, that fear of rejection, that fear of isolation, that fear of abandonment, we store those. and then we relate them to every situation that we have. And this is when feeding the fears can really keep you from what you are choosing to become.
Exactly. And fear, um, at its essence, is something we have been born with, you could say. It's we need to have that part too for things that you mentioned. For instance, if I
Yes.
put my finger in the candle, I know it's going to be painful. I'm not
Yes,
built for putting my finger into the candle, right? So we need
exactly.
to have a certain amount. But what happens is that uh, with the years and with being raised up and growing up, we are taught things that may actually not be conducive for us, right? That
Hmm.
are stopping our progression because we are fearful of things that it's not really natural to be fearful of.
Yes, I mean, you're getting too fat, you're getting too thin, you're not tall enough. Um, if you don't go to this school, that you're going to be a complete failure. These are all things that we pack into our essence, and unfortunately, we use those as guidelines to guide us when we are looking at a job, or we're looking at a partner, we're looking at a situation. And by not addressing these and realizing that they assisted us at that particular time, but they're no longer assisting us,
Yeah,
um, this is where we just keep feeding that. I'm not worthy. I'm not going to even look at that job because I'm going to fail. Um, what if I am successful? Then I'm going to have to do all this. All these things that we are the unrealistic fears that we bring into our essence. And every time we do this, as I said, our body responds in the same way that if a bear was chasing us. The
yeah,
adrenaline pumps, the which can be a little bit exciting because you're alert, you're ready to go, you're ready to do things, and a lot of times you're living your life and not realizing that you're going from adrenaline shot to
yeah,
adrenaline shot. And so you will be in a relationship that is disastrous. And then you break up and then you go through all that and all that adrenaline. But then you seek out the same type of situation. And because it becomes a normal feeling, and understanding that this is being driven by fear can be released, and you can start using joy and accomplishment and these things to be your motivation to challenge you to be better instead of, well,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I mean, for instance, things like I'm not good enough. So if I want to try and get this job, they are probably not going to. And this is also self-talk, right? Telling
Very much,
myself
yeah.
that I'm not. I'm in for a failure, in my sense, in my perception, and therefore I'm fearful of whatever, being ridiculed, feeling rejected, feeling less, feeling whatever, right?
Hmm.
That is not a fear that's going to bring us forward because uh, there are a few differences. For instance, if I had a pattern of stepping into relationships that are destructive for me,
Hmm.
that is not either conducive. And I get that kick, as you say, right? But stopping myself from exploring life, you could say, okay, I really feel for, I'm not talking about getting into dangerous things, but I really say that once I've been in it, if I had the unluck to step into a relationship that wasn't really good, I can take the experience and the learnings and the teachings with me. And I don't really need to see that as a failure. I can see that as, okay, I know I tried it. This is not something I want to try again. I don't need to step into that fear. And, fear-based things, there are people who are very, very extremely adventurous. So they get a kick out of climbing mountains
Hmm.
and skydiving,
Living on the
you
edge. Yeah.
name it, bungee jumping. I think that's kind of somehow the same kick.
It is. It's an adrenaline kick, but it's um, understanding that encourages them to achieve something that is challenging, and a little bit of that is good because we would have never, found the wheel. We would have never taken the first flight. We would have never, you know, jumped into the ocean. We would have never done those things if we didn't have a little bit of adrenaline pushing us. However, it is it is used in a good way to accomplish something. It is not something that we daily do to ourselves by going into that. Well, I'm going to have to be better because everybody told me I was no good, and
Yeah.
using that as our motivation rather than I love myself and I have put a lot of work into what I'm doing. I have studied and I am ready for that. There again, the self talk,
Yes.
using that as our motivation rather than I can't fail. Uh, in sports, you hear this all the time where they try to motivate the team with negativity. Oh, you're a runt. You're not going to do this. You got to do better. And but that causes that kind of a negative situation, which will wear you out. Where if it's yes, you have a challenge, but you can overcome it. You've got what it takes. You are limitless. And using those affirmations or those explanations rather than you're never going to do it, trying to motivate someone to be harder. I never could figure that out when I would watch some of these shows where they were, okay, you're lousy, you're this, and I'm going, would never work with me.
No, and I think because we are tenacious, we are not having a bad attitude or thinking that we are on top of the world and best of, everybody's below us. It's not about that, but it's about acknowledging yourself, loving
Exactly.
yourself, understanding that we are limitless.
Yeah.
And if we set our mind to something, there's nothing that really can stop us. And we do have free will. So we can always say, okay, I hear what you're saying. If you say I'm lousy, I'm fine. That's your opinion. It's not mine. Bye
And
bye.
yeah, and that's part of finding your authenticity, and working with um, recreating everything that got you to that particular point, because the past brings you to the present,
Yes.
and the present, if you live in the present, will now allow you to have possibilities in the future. And I think what we're trying to convey here is to fall back into that, um, I'm not good enough, so I've got to try better. I've got to have a better car. I've got to have this. I've got to have that as a motivation, and finding out within yourself, within your shadow self, what motivates you to get into these situations, and
Yeah,
are they for your highest good?
exactly. And we can very often listen. I mean, feeling and listening in
Yes.
um, to how we feel about certain things. Most of the time, we are getting hinges about maybe that's not right for you. I mean those flashes that are coming, because they are signals.
Yes.
We don't listen to them all the time. We start thinking, and we need our mind as well, but we need to have the balance between all of our senses and emotions and everything, because fear is not a sense, it's an emotion, right?
No. And learning to identify what is going to maybe guide me to make a better decision and what is freezing me from making that decision.
Yeah,
And that's a big contrast, because I realize that if I drive fast and dangerously, I'm putting myself at risk. Now, that is a valid thinking process of I do not want to fearfully have an accident. So that's going to keep me on the straight and narrow. But
yeah,
to say, well, I'm not going to take that class because I always had problems in that class, and keeping me from doing something that might open up possibilities to me, and saying, go away. I'm not listening to you anymore. I am not in physical danger, and I am going to risk my emotional life because I know that I have possibilities. And getting to that point where you're not falling into it, or you're not depending on fear to be your motivation, and finding other ways to motivate yourself, of staying in
yeah,
the now, staying in the now.
yeah,
You know, opening up to the possibilities that having a conversation with somebody is going to lead you to maybe a class or a book, an article, or something that is going to be something that you need for your own growth, and
yeah,
growing within yourself.
yeah, and staying aware of things, because staying aware and awake and seeing different perspectives of things, and you may encounter seeing different perspectives. At one side is going to be, you have 10 opinions or perspectives that are positive, and you have 10 on the other side towards the negative. You know, it is learning also. And it's also about what you decide for yourself, because if you can see a bigger picture, then you have better choices, right?
Yes.
And I want to come back to this thing, when we have a replay in our mind, we talk to
Mhm.
ourselves in a certain way. That is something that creates negative experiences most of the time, because we are focusing on it, right? At the
Yes.
same time. So we created. Um, I wrote something that I want to read. This is a mental rehearsal of failure, and
Hmm.
it's a powerful way that we feed our anxieties.
Very much so. Very much so. And I love the way that you put in here that we even use fear as a defense system,
Yeah,
a fear of avoidance, and uh, keeping us from our potential. Um, so we've learned to use this as sometimes as an excuse, and it's amazing how we limit ourselves with fear. And the lovely companions of fear are guilt and worry.
yes,
And guilt and worry are really useless emotions, um, because to worry about something that I know that I don't have the ability to do this, and I'm afraid to do this, and what if I do this, and then you go into the worry, and worry never accomplished anything. It never changed the situation. It never made it easier. It just takes away from your presence, and
yeah,
takes away from you as a person.
yeah. And I have a personal story that I can actually relay a little bit of this too, because many people are assuming, and this is interesting, assumptions. We talked about assumptions,
Yes.
that because I broke my leg last year in July, right, that I'm fearful of sitting on a bicycle. But I say to them, because I'm not that kind of person. I don't
Yeah.
have that within me. But there's also a part of me that have uh, a little bit of realistic perspective on things, right? So
Yes.
I realize that that thing is not for me anymore. But there are so many other things I can do. Why
Yeah.
get stuck on that? But I don't know how many times I've heard, are you afraid of sitting on a bicycle?
Oh, I know. And people that still live in their fears, they also, being around people that live from fear, makes it harder to live in a world without fear. And I'm like you. I mean, I realized, I mean, I can still climb ladders, and I have no fear of heights, and I still get up tall, but I choose a different ladder that has a bigger step on it. And then I make
Yeah.
sure that it's sure, not that I'm afraid I'm going to fall, but because I would rather preserve my health. And so
Yeah.
it's a cautionary, you know, think before you do that. And and
Yeah,
and
exactly. But
hey,
it's funny because I I had all these assumptions. I mean, like when
yeah,
you have to, you're just smiling and saying, "Why do you ask that?" I'm not afraid.
no, no, and there's a difference between being intelligently cautious and being listening to all of the old programming, um, that the assumptions that people make that this particular type of person is going to be a bad person because they look like something else or they heard something else. And we have a tendency a lot of times when you're not living your authentic life to be fragmented and to be living other people's experiences rather than
Yeah,
being solidified in who you are and what you are. And also, I've worked with people where I had this one young woman, and her boyfriend told her he was breaking off the engagement. He said, I do not want to be around you. He moved out of the country. He has not had contact with her. And this is well into a year now. And she still says, but I know that he is my one, and I
yeah,
know that he's going to change. Well, all she's doing is staying within her own encapsulated fear of doing anything else. And this is when it becomes really unhealthy. This is when, uh,
yeah,
it becomes obsessive and
yeah. And
feeding it.
another assumption when it comes to relationships is this is the one, and because this one left, woman or man,
Yeah.
I'm going to end up being alone. No, but it's up to you. If you're
Yes.
hanging on to something, why are you hanging on to that? Because if someone shows you they don't want to be with you, why chase them?
Yes. It's I I guess I was very, very guided, but uh, after 23 years, when my husband decided that he wanted to leave the marriage, and he actually thought it would be a good idea if I sat down with the woman that he was seeing and have a conversation, which I did. I thought that was a pretty normal thing, not knowing, because I didn't have any assumptions about anything. And I said, look, I love him enough to let him go. I'm not going to force somebody to be with me if that's not where they want to be.
Yeah,
And and it's beautiful because he and I are really, really good friends now. And so I did not destroy anything in making the transition. because I wasn't clinging to, well, what is going to happen to me? And I still had a small child that I was,
Yeah.
taking care of.
Yeah.
So meeting your fear and seeing, is it for my well-being, or is it working against me, and being able to move through it. I think that is mastering and not feeding your fear.
Yeah. And almost all the time, there are exceptions, like always, right? But most of the time, when a few months, maybe a year or something have passed, and you think back, it had become a memory. Maybe you had one bad day, maybe you had one bad month, maybe you
Mhm.
experienced some struggles. It doesn't mean that we bring them back into our present, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We can leave that, and we can understand that we passed through that and we became stronger. We didn't become more fearful if we don't focus on the fear, right? But
Yes.
also, I want to bring up something that's interesting for me, because we are living in a world. I sound like Aunt Berta, 150 years older, right?
Yes.
Look at the world around us.
Yeah.
But we are influenced by so many things,
Constantly.
external influences. It's kind of alarming news, sensational headlines, negativity, focusing mostly on the negative side of things. Social media platforms, for instance, right? Um, Fear mongering things.
Yes.
But there's a difference between, as I said before, between keeping yourself aware, because we need to do that, and we need to acknowledge also the negative side of things, but not crossing the line to step into fearfulness and to grow those things in our lives, right?
Yes.
Because this society, wherever we are in the world, we are fed with, look at the news. They are just blowing up things all the time,
Yeah.
and so many different perspectives. And I can understand it's a good thing. Sometimes we are very close related to certain things, other times we are just observing. But we can find our own way. We don't need to step into the fear,
Yes.
right?
Yes. It used to be that we had people on the front lines that were reporting things, and you could actually see what was happening, and you could make a good judgment. Now things are being fed to us, and if you were to talk to somebody that were in the actual situation, it would be a different view than what they're promoting. And we are constantly being bombarded with, if you don't use this deodorant, you won't be accepted. If you don't buy this car, you won't be accepted. If you don't have, insurance, you're going to die. There's this commercial that they put on, and it's well done. It's well done. But boy, I'll tell you, it is so psychological, where they show older couples, playing with the grandkids, and then going out and dancing with each other, and then making cookies. And they say, and this is your life until, and then they stop it, and they go, just like a dead line, like this person just died from that particular thing. And I thought, boy, what psychological warfare is that? I mean, done very well, but I read through those things. But we're constantly being bombarded with fear because it keeps us in a state of anxiety.
Yeah.
When you're in anxiety, you cannot think clearly. Um, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about something very mundane. However, it hit on something that she was triggered, and something that she was going to champion, and she was going to fight for this. And all of a sudden, it no longer became a conversation, it became an alteration. And I go, it's okay. I don't have to be a winner. I don't have to prove my point. And I realized that she had been triggered by other things that had been said. And it when we started doing this, it reminded me of a book that was written in 1944 by
Yeah.
Orson. Yeah, no, it was written in 1944, and the name of the book was 1984. Okay, now I read that as a teenager, and it was about a society that was run by fear. Now, they had flat screen TVs in every single room, and you had to stand in front of those every hour to have your daily dose of how horrible the world was and what was happening, the bad stuff, because keep that fear going. And you were not allowed to have any time that you weren't in front of this screen. And so they were able to control the people with fear. And then as I'm growing up, I see things that were in the book happening, and I'm going, oh geez, we're heading. And what is it now? Everything is about fear, and I'm telling you, people, only 1% of what we're being fed is what is really happening, and
Yeah.
that's what's being promoted to keep us
Exactly.
agitated, to keep us in the fear. And then we do all of our own mental, emotional stuff. Well, if I don't have my hair just right, he won't like me. If I haven't got a boob job, it won't, and we're being focused to purchase and do these things to be accepted. And this is feeding
Exactly.
fear.
Yeah, it is feeding. And another common way to feeding fear is that can be said, if we are being fed all those things that you just mentioned, right?
Yeah,
We can come to a place where we feed our own fear with avoidance. We avoid things. We don't
exactly.
dare to try. So when confronted with something that triggers discomfort or apprehension, our natural indication is often to retreat, right?
Oh, yes.
But should we really do that all the time, or should we believe in ourselves, have a strong sense about ourselves? Because um, some things we can do this avoidance is by avoid difficult conversations, shy away from challenging tasks, something that is going to probably make us grow a little bit instead, right?
Hmm.
And my favorite saying is grabbing the bull by its horns, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Going to it. And,
Yep.
hoping that if we ignore and avoid these things, it's going to disappear. Or on another note, on the other side, if I keep affirming something, my one kind of being in this world, which we have not only one, right? But that person, my person, is going to just drop down in my lap. That's not going to happen either. So it's two sides of the same coin. While we do avoid to get ourselves out, exploring things, trying new ways,
Hmm.
saying that, okay, I can see this, it is hurtful. It doesn't mean that we're not going to hurt, but it means that, do I love myself more, or am I giving my power away to someone else
Yes.
that don't really give anything back, right?
Yeah.
So while while avoidance can offer temporary relief, it never truly resolves
No.
the underlying issues, right? Instead, the fear intensifies, growing larger and more um, bigger with each instance of evasion, right?
Yeah.
And it's like something else that I wrote here. The untouched monster in the closet grows far more terrifying than the one we eventually confront, right? So
Exactly.
this pattern of avoidance reinforces the idea that fear is a powerful adversary, thereby strengthening its grip.
Yes. And I'll give a little story with that one. I never, my parents didn't divorce, so I hadn't grown up with divorce around me. But I always felt that I was not good enough, and that my husband chose me, and that was a privilege. And so I did not want to ever think about divorce. I mean, it wasn't a conscious thing, but I conformed. I did, I became the ideal wife and everything else, uh, with that in the back of my mind that I wasn't good enough. And if I wasn't good enough, he could always divorce me. So somewhere back there, it was there. Well, when I actually got a divorce, no, it was not fun and games, and it was a struggle. But it was not anywhere near what I had dreamed up for it to be. And I,
Mm.
I came out, and I even thank my ex now. We're very good friends. And I thanked him for having the courage to get a divorce, because I would have just hung in there and stayed conforming and tried to make do, and we both would have been miserable. And I would have missed this incredible life that I have now. So when we build that up in our mind, like you said, that we keep it in the closet and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you
Yeah,
actually go in there and start working on your shadow life, and you realize that it's so minute, that how could it have been this big monster? But it's
yeah,
here. It's here.
yeah, yeah, it's here. And something else, and I have also a personal story, and it's about relationships, because I think generally most of us are dealing with situations and relationships that are teaching us things, right? So I met
Absolutely.
someone, and I called the person in the beginning. I said to my friends, I met a piece of wood. I don't know what to do. He shows so many things, and on another side, it's like he doesn't show anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I continued, and I have a lot of patience, even though I am stubborn.
Well,
Um, so it took quite a long time, more than 2 years, actually, to be honest. And this was probably my lesson. Afterwards, I see it as my lesson. So I just came to that point when I said, okay, I'm not going to be growing sorrow over this anymore. I'm not going to grow fear. I'm not going to push. I'm not going to chase. I'm not going to do things. I'm just simply going to release the energy. It is what it
beautiful.
is. This is the situation I find myself. Maybe it's not what I really would desire, but this is the reality I find myself in right now. So I release it. And it nothing is ever a quick fix on this journey, but within a month or two, the situation changed because I let go of the energy,
Mhm.
not letting go of myself.
Yes.
Because living when you feel, most people are not conscious of their intentions when they are maybe saying
Candle.
something and acting differently, right? Or vice versa. So they are not really mean and bad to hurt you, but you end up feeling hurt. But when you feel hurt, you have to realize that I can never change someone else.
Mm-mm.
And sometimes if you have had conversations, that person you realize is not going to listen to what you say. So
Exactly.
conversations are done, right? So what if I'm going to end up alone? And I said, well, I'm not going to be alone. I'm going to have myself.
That's right. Yes. And we have no ability to change another person's life. We have the ability to change ourselves. And possibly as we change and they feel the change and see the change, then they at some level are motivated on their own to not change to our point of view, but make changes in their life, which is going to make it easier for both of us. So
Yes,
it's not a matter of making someone change or loving them enough to change them. It is letting go and
yeah,
working on yourself.
exactly. And
Self love.
I have a favorite saying. I refer to this as a four-way cross, a road
Hmm.
crossing.
Yes.
This is a T cross because you realize I can't continue week after week, month after month, year after year in this way. I can't continue. Something needs to change, right?
Yes.
And because we cannot have someone else change the way we want to, we change ourselves and we say, okay, if they buy it, they do. It's going to be either yes or it's going to be a no.
Exactly.
But I'm not playing this any longer, right?
Yes. I had it explained one time to me as uh, how long do you want to live your life in a revolving door,
Yeah,
going round
exactly.
and round and round and round and round? And it's the example of uh, what is the definition of crazy? Keep doing the same thing over and over and keep expecting a different result. Well, it's until you start saying this is not healthy for me and I'm going to change me because none of my screaming and hollering and beating and threatening and everything else is ever going to remold someone else.
Yeah.
But if I change my perceptions and everything else, because changing your perceptions and beginning to love yourself, you see so many different more possibilities. I mean, maybe the possibility is staying in that relationship and it's going to be different because you're seeing it differently, you're living it differently, or maybe
Yes.
changing that relationship and not having that person in your life, but accepting that that's okay,
Yeah,
because
it is
in,
okay.
instead of fighting it,
Yeah, because it's the same. You could apply that on I want to change my work life and career, right?
yeah.
But I'm not doing anything because I'm not making any efforts, conscious efforts, doing any action, taking action,
Yes.
because I feel that there's no use. I'm not going to get any. So right there, we set the boundaries. I'm not going to be successful. And who says that? Self-talk, right?
Self-talk.
So we need to change. Sometimes it's enough just changing small things, taking baby steps. We don't need to tear down our entire life and start rebuilding it. We can take pieces of it, right? But it depends on us. And if you think about going back to relationships again, so if I'm miserable in a situation, but I refuse to step outside of it because I think it may change. I don't want to miss if it's going to change. And I keep myself in the same energy in the loop, just like you said, other words, right? And that can be day out, day in, week out, week in,
Yeah.
month out, month in, year out, year in.
Yes.
Do I want that? No one says they want that. So we can give people a certain amount of time because we sometimes people are different than we are. We are all unique, right?
Hmm.
But we can determine for ourselves how much time and space in my heart in my mind, in my life, do I want to give this if it's not going to function?
And when you step out of fear and you're motivated by self-love, you start making changes coming from that self-love and not coming from a defensive, well, I'm going to, be stronger, and I'm going to be right, and I'm going to, fight this thing, where you say, I love myself enough to realize that I need to find a way to maybe live in this situation or be open to new situations.
Yeah.
But when you start doing that, you remove the conflict from yourself, but you
Yeah.
also removed the need to always be fighting and trying to be right. And
Yeah.
this is I've got a friend here now.
Maybe my friend came to you.
And I mean, what is it, folks, with this studio? You're supposed to have it fly free. I'm kidding. Uh,
But it's about, like you mentioned, and I can mention some personal things for me that I also experienced, that I just love them, and they were natural for me because my family, what they did give me was to be open-minded, right?
mhm.
But you could have chosen when your ex-husband came and stated he wanted a divorce and had
Yeah.
a new lady. You could have said, I'm going to be angry with her, I'm going to refuse
Yes.
having any kind of connection because I'm better, I don't deserve to be um, pushed down, or whatever you could have said. You didn't
Exactly.
do that. You didn't do that.
No.
You managed it with the greatest thing we can do. You said, okay, this is not what I do desire, but I set you free, and I wish you good luck for the
And
future.
and I was coming from a little bit of adversity. I had just had my 40th birthday. I had just had two hysterectomies within 2 weeks, and I still had. I mean, most of my kids were teenagers, but I had a 2-year-old. So here I am, really facing the prospects of going into a divorce with a lot of things against me, so to speak. But I realized that if you love yourself and if you profess to love others, you want to find a solution where you're going to be able to live. And just on Father's Day, um, all of my children were celebrating their father on Father's Day. And I looked around and I said, I know that by my attitude towards him, I have allowed this family to still have that connection with their father. And you hear so many times of the children paying the price for all of this uh, fear that parents have brought into it, and they just propagate it. They just keep feeding it, and then another generation, another generation. And I refused, even not knowing what I was doing at the time,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
refused to feed the fear.
Yeah,
And as it turns out, it really is watching, and we have occasions where we're all together all the time, and I look around and I go, if I had done anything remotely heroic in my life, being able to let go and give this family an opportunity to be able to have this at this part of especially his life, I thought, well, I think I got a little gold star there.
you did. But because I don't have any kids, right? I don't have any children. But I was married to a man for 17 years, And early on in our relationship, I became friends with his previous wife.
Yeah.
They were divorced for 2, 3 years when I met him, so that was already over and
Yes.
done with, right?
Yes.
But I heard a lot of people saying many were happy and cheery, and there were also many people who said, "Don't you have any self-esteem
I
to
know.
be friends with his ex-wife?" And I said, "What's the problem? If I feel that her and I have a connection, and she feels the same, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Well,
What's
it's
the problem?"
yeah. What's the problem? And get over yourself. And then that's years and years and years. Um, I have been doing a lot of homework on myself. I accumulated a lot of baggage, and but I was divinely guided to make a change. I don't know where this information came from or whether I came into the world with it and they said, okay, at this particular time, now you're going to go on a different path. But I listened and I did apply myself. And this is not something that is just done overnight. It is done consciously. It is done. This didn't work, so what will work? This feels like me, this doesn't feel like me. Finding my authenticity, finding my self love. And it's, but you do have to put in the work. I mean, even a plant will not grow instantly. It
Yeah.
takes its time to develop and bear fruit. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So breaking the cycle of fear requires conscious effort, right? So we
very
need to
much
act
so.
on it. We need to acknowledge it. And that includes maybe not feeling comfortable all the time. But whenever we feel uncomfortable, that is the biggest sign that, there's something that I need to
Yep.
have a look at, you know? And also to break patterns in general and the cycle of feeding fear needs us to have a shift in perspective, seeing things from a different angle.
Yes.
It begins with awareness, recognizing when we are engaging in fear nurturing behaviors, right? Once identified, we can begin to challenge those negative thought patterns. But we can only do that if we are being able to see them, right? Or
Exactly.
taking them into account. There's something here I need to discover, right? Instead of asking, what if I fail? We can ask ourselves, what if I succeed?
Yes.
Instead of dwelling in worst case scenarios, we can focus on potential solutions, possibilities, and opportunities. How
Yes.
about that?
Yes, I mean, let's say that a person is diagnosed with a a challenging illness, and the doctor says, "Well, you've only got a 2% chance that you're going to come through this, and there's 99% chance that you're or 98% chance you're not going to make it." Well, guess what? If you love yourself, you're going to say, "Well, I'll take the 2%." You know, why go into that and I think when I see a physician and they get a little chuckly because they'll say, oh well, this and this and this, and I said, yeah, but what's the other side?
Yeah.
I said, I'll take the other side, and that's the path that I'll go down, uh, because I have a choice. I don't have to buy into their fear that because I hit a certain age this is going to happen. And man, I have broken everything they said about what happens to a woman as she gets older, and I just laugh at them. Uh, and I'll tell young people sometimes, young women, and I say, let me tell you, ladies, life gets a whole lot better in all areas of your life. And they just look at me like, what is she talking about? And I said, yeah, I'm talking about what you think I'm talking about. And and this is the thing that, but society has said that as soon as you hit this age, you this and this and this and this. Well, guess what? You know, not me. I'm doing that 2%.
Yes.
I'm that exception to the rule. You know.
And because you see it that way, it's your choice, right? You made a choice.
Yes.
We always have a choice. And now I have a fly back.
Yep. Yeah.
Did you send it? Did you send it back to me?
Yeah. I said you go play with her for a while. Yeah.
But no matter what kind of choices we made in the past, in the present, we always can make new choices.
Absolutely.
Reality says that some of those choices may take a little bit or to accomplish, but that's nothing to be fearful of, right?
Yes. That's just
Some of them
living.
may be made in an instant, but we can always make new choices, and we don't have to be a victim of fear in our past.
No. No. And that's a choice too. Well, it's easier for me just to lay here and be, trampled on, because that's my fate. That's and everything else. But these are all choices. I mean, look at the people that have overcome extreme adversity, and they're the ones that say, well, I'm not buying into what you're saying. I'm going to do what it takes to go that extra yard or to go that extra mile. And when you start realizing that you are unique and special, it's okay to go that extra mile for yourself. Because
Mm,
when you do, you become this incredible, valuable um, person that is going to maybe inspire the next person. So
exactly.
it's 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 just love yourself and let that love show. And it sounds frivolous, I know, the word love. But
Yes.
when you really honor your your divine being, when you respect that you are unique, that's love. It's not about going out and buying this or doing that or having this body shape or that body shape. It's about saying, I care enough to care for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to read something else that I really like. Ultimately, fear is a tool, not a master, right?
It
It
is.
is an emotion that can serve us, but only if we understand its mechanism and refuse to allow it to dictate our lives, right? By
Exactly.
consciously choosing to starve the fear of its usual, I can't read the word, sustenance. Did I say that
Yes, you
correct?
did beautifully.
By challenging its narratives, limiting its external fuel, and bravely confronting its presence, we reclaim our agency and open the door to life unburdened by the influence of fear, right? Because it
Exactly.
is a tool. We can relate to that. We said that when I'm understanding that I have fear for something, what does that stand for? Where is it coming from?
Yes.
Do I need this fear to protect me? Or is it something that is
Yeah.
I can release and let go of, right?
Exactly. And when you're not living in fear, you're able to discern whether this is something that you really need to be aware of because you will physically have an altercation with something, or if it is something that you have perceived and you have built this monster up that you can't function because I know that it's going to come out and get me if I do this. So there again, the tools that you have and use them correctly. I mean, every tool we have in the toolbox. I mean, I'm not going to use a hammer to try and saw down a tree, you
No.
know? So use the tool that is going to be of purpose to you at that moment, but then realize it's a tool and not let it get bigger and bigger and bigger and overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let the monster in the closet grow. Take
Exactly.
it. Grab
That's
it by the horns.
yes. That's right. Wrestle it to the ground. By golly. Yeah.
And also working on yourself. That is a process and never ever a quick fix, right? Be kind
Never.
to yourself. Sometimes maybe we are sliding back a step. That's okay. But we become aware again and we next time we choose something different, right?
Yes. Yes.
But you know, it is also a catalyst for the greatest changes for the future when we are doing self-work.
Yes. Yes. Because you never know it's I love to work with gems and stones. When a stone a jeweler, excuse me, my tongue got twisted, when they are working on this unfinished stone and they look at it and they listen to the essence of it, like Michelangelo, he says, I don't create what the statue is. I let the stone tell me what it wants me to do. And that's the same with a diamond. And that's the same with us. We may not know exactly what we're going to become, but we know that we have all of these aspects of ourselves that need to be released. And if we're willing to do a little bit of homework, we spend a lot of time on diet pills and exercise and the clothes that make us look right and all of these things. Why not spend the time on the most valuable thing in the world, the essence of yourself, the inside,
Yeah, exactly.
you know?
It is priceless
It is
and very
limitless,
valuable. Yeah, limitless.
limitless. Yeah,
Limitless. Yeah, so wow, that was an intriguing and interesting discussion, right?
it was. And always I look back at the notes and I go, well, we mentioned that, but there was so much other stuff that just and I love the way that it evolves. It becomes an entity of its own, and it says these are what needs to be said at this particular time, and and being able to be authentic enough to let it flow. I think that is what I enjoy about working with you is that it just uh, it becomes a delightful conversation.
It does, and I love that working with you too. I really appreciate it. I honor it, and I see you, and I love you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you because even though we usually go by our articles, right? And we have certain things we need to mention. For instance, in a bit here, we're going to talk about next week, but
Yes.
that's obvious, right? But it's the free flow, and you know, talking that gives something else. It's like a part of channeling, but in our own way, right? So
Yes.
it gives direction for what's going to come next.
But it builds on itself and opens up another possibility, another perspective, and this is beautiful. And um, it's so exciting to be part of this. And you know, thank you.
And thank you too. And you know, we are going to rock the socks out of people, right? I hope so.
That's right. Yes.
Initiating change that people want to do for themselves. It's not like
Yes.
we are saying we know everything because we don't. We are walking the talk just like everybody else. But we have been in this field for quite a long time. That means also experience, and that means also tried out, twist and tweaked a lot of things in our own lives,
Yep.
and therefore understood because it's not that complicated. Sometimes, because we go by the world's conventions, we have a feeling that it's going to be more complicated than it is. But it's not, it's your relationship to yourself.
Well, I think I mentioned to you this morning that in my journey over the last 45 years, um, there weren't opportunities like what we're doing for people that were finding that they were maybe on a different wavelength, a different path, different frequency. And how I wonder what it would have been like to have had the experience of somebody having already gone through what we're going through and saying, hey, it's a little bumpy, but you can make it. Uh, However, I think that made both of us more tenacious and stubborn and really strong in able to address our shadow self, address our fears, and as you said, take that bull by the horns. And I'm a Taurus, so please don't touch my horns.
I want, I want to take your horse.
But it's been a delightful experience to grow and mature and experience life with you. Thank you again.
Thank you too. And do you think we are ready to wrap this up?
I
Yes?
think I think so. I think the flies have disturbed us enough, so I think it's time to say goodbye.
I'm going to try to chase after mine here.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody. You have been watching Cosmic Sis-Stars Show with Corinne and Anne, and we talked about feeding the fear, a very important topic. You can find our past episodes at upcoming and past at angelplaceonearth.com/upcoming-past. Our next upcoming show here on Cosmic Sis-Stars Show is going to be next Wednesday, June 25th, with Cosmic Sis-Stars and Anne and Corinne. And we talk about The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, Insight 4, the control drama. Isn't that intriguing? That is connected to fear. People often compete for energy unconsciously.
Yep.
Energy vampires, draining someone else, feeling drained, all of that good stuff, right? So we did launch 12-part series in May this year, where we dive deep into the Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield and all the insights. We discuss them one by one. We're going to end up in sometime in November because we do it twice a month. 12 insights, that's massive. Plus, we have a summary at the end. And just join us because it's intriguing. And as I mentioned, if you want to find past episodes, I think I did create, but sometimes I forget things. So I think I did something so we can find the series on the website. But you can always find all episodes at angelplaceonearth.com/upcoming-past. And we do go live for you every Wednesday, Thursday in Australia, because that's going to be 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. sometime. It's very, very early. But anyway, and we have chosen to go live on youtube.com/at angelplaceonearth/streams because it's easier. And then we stream the replay on facebook.com/cosmic guardians if you want to watch the replay on Facebook. So you still have a choice. And thank you so much for watching us today. And we send love, light, peace, and joy to all of you.
Yes. Love, light, peace, and laughter. Laughter.
Thank you. Bye.
Well.